Welcome back, guys. Today, what we're going to continue is to continue to discuss our discussion about matter, specifically living matter. But let's recap, all right? In class, we talked about that in this world, okay, there's two things. There's energy and there's matter, okay? And we talked about these two things being completely different, okay? Matter is actually, okay, made up of atoms, all right? That is the smallest pieces of matter, all right? So when we think about matter, just think of anything that takes up space. Atoms are the smallest things that take up space, okay? Atoms come together to form these things called molecules, okay? And molecules make up the world that you see around you. Certain types of molecules come together to build living matter, and other molecules, okay, comprise non-living matter. All right, in class we talked about some of these molecules, some of these small molecules that comprise non-living matter, such as H2O, CO2, O2, and there's so many more. It's hard to list them all. But today what we're going to focus in is on the specific molecules, okay, that come together to build living matter. So let's go ahead and talk about that. And the last piece I'd like to say about energy is, remember, all living things need energy, because energy is what is going to allow us, our cells, to do all the work that will keep it alive. So although energy and matter are completely different, all right, living matter needs energy to do the work that keeps it alive. So that's one little tidbit. So now let's talk about living matter. All right, guys, so now let's talk about the building blocks of living matter, okay? Now, as we talked about in our previous discussion, okay, atoms make molecules, all right? And now there's certain molecules that are super important, okay? These molecules, okay, are called amino acids. Another molecule that's super important is carbohydrates called glucose. There's other molecules called nucleotides. And there are other molecules that are comprised of fatty acids and glycerol. So now, amino acids, glucose, nucleotides, and fatty acids and glycerol, these are molecules that are pretty small, okay? Now, what we need, why these molecules are so important for living matter is because amino acids come together to form these macromolecules. Okay, that's just a fancy word that means big molecules, okay, that are called proteins. Glucose comes together, okay, to form these other macromolecules such as starch, glycogen, and cellulose in plants. Okay? Nucleotides come together, okay, to form nucleic acids, DNA is a nucleic acid, and RNA is another nucleic acid, right? And then finally, fatty acids and glycerols, okay, come together to form lipids, okay? So all these smaller molecules come together to form these huge molecules. And these huge molecules here are the building blocks for living matter. Now, these macromolecules, proteins, nucleic acids, lipids, and carbohydrates, are also called Polymers, because they are made of smaller molecules. So amino acids make up proteins, okay? Nucleotides make up nucleic acids. Fatty acids and glycerols make up lipids. And the larger carbohydrates, such as starch, cellulose, and glycogen, are made of glucose. So that's why these guys sometimes are also referred to as polymers, because they're made out of many monomers, okay, or smaller pieces of material, smaller pieces of smaller molecules. Okay, now let's put all this in context, right? So lipids, okay, think about all these four things as the ingredients for living matter, right? And what is living matter? Well, remember, let's talk about the smallest piece of living matter, which is a cell. Okay, so a cell, okay, would need lipids, because the lipids would form the cell membrane. Okay, the cell membrane. Okay, the outside of the cell, this layer that protects everything inside, it would form all the organelles. Okay, like mitochondria. Okay, chloroplast in plants. Okay, the rough ER. So lipids form all the walls of all the organelles inside. Okay, so we got lipids covered. So they're think of it like lipids like plywood. Okay, they're the ones that are going to form all the structures of the cell. Okay, nucleic acids are needed because these guys are going to be used as the molecules to carry our genetic code. So the DNA would be in here. Okay, proteins are going to be everywhere in the cell, everywhere, inside organelles, inside as part of the cell membrane. Proteins are everywhere. Think of proteins like the workers of the cell. They're going to do all the jobs necessary, okay, for the cell to stay alive. So we need the proteins because they're the workers. We need the nucleic acids because those are the instructions that tell all the proteins what to do, and also the cell, that's how it knows which proteins to make. The lipids, because that's what we need to build all the parts of the cell. And finally, carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are going to be molecules that when they enter the cell is going to make energy, or going to be able to use that carbohydrate almost like think of carbohydrates almost like you know, wood, okay? And think of your mitochondria as kind of like a furnace, okay? So when that carbohydrate goes into the mitochondria, okay, it's gonna, think of it, it's not necessarily burning it, but there's a chemical reaction that happens, and that carbohydrate is gonna be able to help the energy, help the cell charge its batteries, okay, and be able to store its energy in a different form, okay, that it can later use when it requires energy and there's no carbohydrates. So now, let's talk about this concept of monomers and polymers, okay? So proteins, nucleic acids, carbohydrates, and lipids, they're huge or massive molecules, so that's why they call them macromolecules, okay? So these are 4 types of macromolecules, very huge molecules, okay? And they're called polymers because, remember, many amino acids come together to form proteins. Okay, millions of nucleotides come together to form nucleic acids. Okay, hundreds or thousands of glucose molecules come together to form a carbohydrate. And then also the fatty acids and glycerol come together to form lipids. So, so just like the polymers are the building blocks for living matter, so you need this to build living matter. Okay, you need these to build these polymers. So this whole thing is almost like a construction project. You need these materials to make these macromolecules. You need these materials to make this macromolecule. You need this material or monomer to make these macromolecules, and you need this material to make this macromolecule. Now that you have these big pieces of material, these massive macromolecules, now we're going to use this material to make living matter. And what is living matter? Well, let's talk about the smallest piece of living matter, which is a cell. The lipids, okay, these macromolecules, this material is going to be used to make the foundation of the cell, like the cell membrane, okay, and the walls of all the different parts inside a eukaryotic cell, so the organelles, okay? So for example, a nucleus. The nucleus, the walls of the nucleus are made out of lipids. The cell membrane, okay, is made out of lipids. All the structures inside the cell and the cell membrane are made out of lipids. So that's why I say lipids. Think of it like, think of it like wood. You need it to build the foundation, the structural foundation of the cell. No lipids, no cell membrane, no organelles, okay? The nucleic acids, okay? You need the nucleic acids because the cell is going to need DNA, okay? And that's what nucleic acids are. DNA is a type of nucleic acid. It's going to need RNA, okay? That's good because the RNA is going to be coming in and out of the nucleus, okay? Because that's going to be how the cell communicates its genetic information to other proteins that are everywhere inside the cell. So now let's talk about proteins. Proteins are everywhere inside the cell. Okay, proteins are everywhere in the cell membrane, in the nucleus. Okay, because proteins, think of them like workers. Okay, the cell makes proteins so that it has the workers to do all the work that's going to keep it alive. The nucleic acids have all the instructions to make the workers, okay? And the lipids, okay? Without lipids, you wouldn't have all these structures, all these rooms where special chemical reactions are happening. So you need to build the foundation, okay? That's what you need the lipids for, to build the actual walls of the cell and all the organelles. You need the nucleic acid so it has all the information that it needs to make its workers. And now the final piece is the carbohydrates. Why does the cell need carbohydrates? Because the carbohydrates are going to provide energy, okay? Energy. Without carbohydrates, the cell is not going to have the energy it needs, okay, to power all the proteins, to power all the, think of proteins, you also can think of them like little machines, and machines need power. Without carbohydrates, there is no power to do the work, to power the proteins so that they can do the work that they need, okay? So hopefully this helps. Think of how we got to a cell, okay? It's a process. You need materials to make bigger pieces of materials, and these materials you need to actually build a cell, a working cell. Hopefully this work helps. See you next time.